Have you ever been at Pride or an LGBTQ rights protest and seen a pink triangle and wondered what its significance is to the gay community? Hi friends, my name is Joe Bushy, and this is Be Gay, Make History, a history podcast focused on the LGBTQ community. And Season 2 is all about the strength of the LGBTQ community in the face of hatred, bigotry, and violence. So what is the pink triangle, and how does it fit into all of that? It is now used as a symbol of strength, but its origins come from the horrors of the Holocaust. In 1871, paragraph 175 of the German Penal Code was created. This made same-sex actions between gay men illegal. Now, this law basically made it illegal to be gay in Germany, but it also went largely unenforced. And many cities like Berlin would have a thriving gay community up until the point that Hitler took power. Gay men were considered a threat to the Nazi regime because they could not produce offspring for the perfect Aryan race. So starting in the 1930s, Hitler strictly enforced paragraph 175, and if there was even a rumor that you might be gay, there was a high likelihood that you would be sent to the concentration camps. And like the Star of David that many of the Jewish victims wore, the gay men were forced to wear an inverted pink triangle. Now, it is important to note that this also affected lesbians and transgender people, but they were less likely to be sent to concentration camps. Now, the times that lesbians were sent to the concentration camps, they were forced to wear a inverted black triangle, which represented people with antisocial tendencies. But the Nazis' hatred was much more focused on the gay men. The tragic thing is that 100,000 gay men were sent to the concentration camps, and nearly 60% of them would be killed in those camps. Historians talk about a hierarchy system that the Nazis had for those imprisoned in the camps. This hierarchy categorized those imprisoned in the camps by least and most important. And those at the bottom of the hierarchy were these gay men. This meant that they were often the first choice of people who were experimented on and tortured, oftentimes being castrated and killed. When the survivors of the camps talk about the horrors that happened to them, oftentimes one of the only small comforts they had would have been the camaraderie that they had within their groups. And the gay men even had this small comfort taken from them. If it was believed that you and another person were doing anything quote-unquote inappropriate, your torture and experimentation would be made much worse. And for me, I would say that the biggest tragedy of all came at the end of the war when in 1945, the Allied troops would liberate the camps. But because it was still technically illegal for gay men to exist in Germany, they were immediately taken from the concentration camps and put into prison. I want you to think about that. You have just gone through some of the most horrific treatment that any person has experienced pretty much ever. And immediately after feeling that joy and that relief of being liberated, you're immediately thrown back into prison. And the Allied forces didn't do anything to stop this, and many historians believe that this is because, at the time, anti-gay sentiment was worldwide, and Germany wouldn't fully decriminalize homosexual acts until 1994. And with the liberation of the camps and the end of the war, and this would be the end of the tragic history of those that were forced to wear the pink triangle. So how does it go from a symbol of these atrocities to a symbol of strength and activism in our community? The pink triangle would resurface in 1977 in Miami. LGBTQ activists would wear it on their clothes while protesting a vote that would strip them of fair and safe housing in Miami. These activists wore the triangle to show solidarity with the victims of the Holocaust. Unfortunately, these activists were not able to stop the law from being repealed and protecting safe and fair housing. But what they did successfully do was bring the pink triangle and its history to the forefront of the media. That year, the Times would write an article about the history of the pink triangle. And these activists would successfully reclaim the pink triangle as a symbol of strength and of activism within the community. The next time that the pink triangle would really be used would be in the 80s and 90s by an activist group called ACT UP. It would be one of the main symbols that they would use to bring attention to the HIV and AIDS pandemic. Now, I will be going over the HIV and AIDS pandemic in a future episode, so I won't be going into a whole lot of detail here about this, but there is one striking thing that came out of ACT UP at this point. It was a campaign designed by Aram Finkelstein Finkelstein's poster design featured a pink triangle in an upright position on a black background with the text "Silence equals death." This combination of symbol and quote would become one of the most important rallying cries in the history of activism in the LGBTQ community in the United States. Since then, the pink triangle has been used as a symbol worldwide for those fighting for the rights of people of the LGBTQ+ communities. Many of us now wear them to acknowledge the atrocities that have happened in our history, and as a small act of rebellion that says, "Never again." I wanted to start the series at this point because I believe that this is one of the best examples of how our community has taken something that was used for hatred and violence against us and turned it into a symbol of power and strength within the community. And if you found this interesting, make sure that you're following along, because next week we are going to be talking about Josephine Baker, who was one of the most important vocalists of her time. But not just that, she was a spy against the Nazis in France. And as this episode comes to a close, I want to remind you that you just living and existing as a member of the LGBTQ community is making history. So keep that shit up.